Hi everyone, good morning. Welcome to our Aquarium Online Academy. My name is Jeanette, and today I am here with my good friend Sophie, who's going to be doing a lot of the behind the scenes work and getting all of these beautiful pictures and media for us today. All right, if you are joining with us live, today is May 13 at exactly 9 a.m. Pacific Central Time. You are more than welcome to tune in and text us live any questions that you might be having. The number is down here. It's 562-286-1838. And Sophie will be able to answer any questions or any observations that you might be seeing. If you are not watching with us live, do not worry. If you're watching this at a later time, that's not May 13th, you can always email questions to us. That is at live@lbaop.org. So today we're coming to you from the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach. What I have behind me is our little coastal corner that we have here. You're going to see lots of different colors and lots of different shapes, and that's what we're going to be focusing on today. So today we're going to be taking a look at a little bit of our habitat called a tide pool. If you do not know what a tide pool is a habitat which we call a home. So this is a home for a lots of our colorful, more wiggly animals that we see, kind of like the ones that we see behind me. If you take a closer look, I'm going to step off the screen a little bit, but I want us to start warming up our scientist brains. As we take a look, I want you to notice what kinds of colors or shapes or maybe even textures you think that all of these animals behind me, what do you think they feel like? What do they look like? All right, I'm going to step off the screen here just for a few seconds, but I want you to point out any colors you see. Do you see any colors? Or maybe even shapes that you might notice? Do you count or see any animals lots of times? You can count them with whoever's at home with you. But we're starting to notice lots of different colors and shapes already. So I'm going to give you a few more seconds. What are some things you are already noticing? And again, we're trying to warm up our scientists' brains. Anything you might be seeing is very valuable. For example, right, I could see maybe a little sea star, right? Maybe we have some sea stars over here, right? Or maybe we have some anemones, right, that we're going to talk about. Or maybe you see some spikier friends like that urchin all the way over here, right? But today we're going to take a closer look at all of our tide pool friends, and we're going to be talking about what shapes they are and what colors. The ocean is full of lots of wonderful shapes and lots of wonderful colors. So let's start by taking a closer look. Sounds good, Sophie? Yay! All right, let's start by taking a look. Let's see what Sophie finds in our tide pool. Look at that! Ooh, it looks like it's kind of dancing and wiggling, right? Let's take a closer look. Let's go ahead and take our finger and let's see if we can trace the shape of what we call our animal friend here. This is our anemones. Let's go ahead and take our tracing finger. Let's start right at the top here, right? And let's trace this circle that the anemone makes. So if we start right at the top, let's go ahead and go all the way down. A nice big curve. And then we're going to go up one more time to create this beautiful circle that our anemones make. If we take a closer look at the colors, anemones come in different colors, but sometimes they come in white, right? Sometimes they come in purple, right? They could even come in green, like our giant green anemones. Exactly. Beautiful job. Thank you, Sophie. So we have our giant green anemone here, right? It looks very fuzzy, but it still has that same circle pattern shape, right? If we take a closer look, we might even notice some of them, like the one back here. It kind of looks a little bit pink, but they look a little bit different from each other, right? That is because this anemone here, right, has all of these tiny little tentacles poking out, right? So these tentacles are exactly how our anemone catches its food. Our anemone doesn't have fins, so it can't just cruise along the bottom of the ocean floor. So they actually have to use their tentacles to go ahead and grab their food, and then they go ahead and take it to their mouth, right? if we take a closer look, you might be also, this is a great picture that shows us its mouth. So if we take a look at the anemone, this middle part of the anemone is actually its mouth. So with these tentacles, they're nice and sticky and they also stretch out very long sometimes. They look like they're dancing in the bottom of the ocean floor, right? So they go ahead and grab their food with their sticky tentacles and they go ahead and close it up and they take it to their mouth. And sometimes when they're eating, you might be noticing that they actually close up kind of like a flower and they create these little round circles. All right. So we took a little closer look at an anemone. Let's see if Sophie could find anything else in our tide pool. Let's see what other shape. Maybe it'll be a circle. Maybe it'll be something new. Let's go ahead and take a closer look. Ooh, I spy with my eyes something very colorful. Can you think about what shape we're seeing this time? I'll give you a clue, right? It has one, two, three, four, and five arms, right? All of these five arms together create our sea star. If we take a closer look, our sea star shape is actually the shape of a star, right? If we go ahead and take our pointer finger, right? Let's go ahead and find a nice sea star. I think this one's a really good one right here, right? And we trace our sea star. We're going up and down, creating one spike, and then again, one more time, we go up and down, creating the next spike of our sea star, right? And then we go down. Oh, wrong way. We are going down this way. Oh, my pointer finger. There we go. All right, we are going down this way, right? And back up this way. And then we're creating two more here. It's okay, we got this. We'll do it together right there. And then we go up one more time. Last arm that we're making here. And again, we are going up and we are going down. There we go. I hope your star looked a little bit better than mine. But we know that they have one, two, three, four, five arms, creating that beautiful sea star shape. Sometimes their arms can be very stretched out. Sometimes they could be a little bit smaller and webbed, like the bat stars that we saw in that first picture, right? But we're starting to notice that they have that same pattern and they come in so many different colors. Like the one that Sophie just put up with us is a nice bright orange color. But if we take a closer look, it's not solid all the way through, right? It has lots of these boop, 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 lots of these little tiny dots, right? And that makes it a little bit tougher and rougher and bumpy than any other ocean animal compared to our anemone, right? So all of these little tiny bumps create a hard surface, right? Why would they need a hard surface? That's a very interesting question, or maybe be bumpy. That is because that's how they actually protect themselves. Yeah, if we take a closer look at all of these shapes, some of these sea stars are a lot spikier than others, like especially like the one we see all the way down here. It has those nice bumpy spikes, right? Well, let's think about it. Would you like to eat something spiky and bumpy and rough? Probably not, right? I know I wouldn't either. So, if we take a closer look, animals are probably thinking the same way that we are. They're probably looking at those sea stars and also thinking, yeah, it's probably not the best meal for me, right? So they have that rough surface to help support them. So if we take an even closer look at these sea stars, think about how they eat. Do we see any teeth on this sea star? Hmm, probably not, right? But if we were to look under a sea star, we'll be able to find its stomach right at the middle, right? Or sometimes we'll be able to even, oh, if I move, we might be able to see the middle right here, right down here. So if we take a look at this middle section, oh, even better. Thank you so much, Sophie. So we're seeing this little middle area here, right? Could you guess as to what this is right here? It kind of looks like a little white pocket, kind of looks a little bit foamy or slimy. That is actually the star's stomach. What we're seeing right now is the sea star actually actively eating. Unlike us, we have teeth that we're able to use to chew down our food. But for our sea stars, since they don't have that, they go ahead and take their stomach out of their bodies, like the white pocket. Right, exactly. Like this white part that we're seeing here. They take their stomachs out of their body. They're going to go ahead and pack it up with some maybe yummy clams that they find. Then they're going to go ahead and kind of break it all down outside of their bodies. And once they're ready, they're going to go and take it back inside of their stomach area, right in this middle area for our sea stars, right? So that is actually how they eat, since again, they don't have teeth like we do. So if we take an even closer look at our sea star, we now learned that it has 5 arms. We learned that it comes in so many different colors. Sometimes they are orange, sometimes they are pink, sometimes they are my favorite color. They are blue, and they come in such different varieties of color. So let's see if we find another animal that might be a stranger color too. Let's see if Sophie could find our next animal friend in our tide pool. Maybe we'll be able to recognize its color this time since we learned about all of these bat stars that come in so many different colors. Ooh, oh, and I think we have it. We have our sea cucumber. If we look at our sea cucumber and we go ahead and take a look and take our pointer finger, right? And we're going to go ahead and think about the shape of the sea cucumber. We're going to notice we're not going to be drawing a circle, but we're going to be drawing a circle that's a little bit stretched out. We call that shape an oval. So if we take our pointer finger, we trace all the way down this side, right? And then we're going to go all the way down a little bit more stretched out than our circle, right? And then we're going to go back up here. Oop, let me move out the way. And we're going to close up our stretched out circle, right? So it's not exactly a circle, but it's longer. It's an oval shape. And if we take a closer look at the color, right? What color do you see here? Is it just one color? No, right? We see lots of little bright orange, maybe even to the point where it's a little bit red. But we also see all of these little dots here, right? These dots are actually white and they kind of look a little bit spiky, right? Especially all of these coming down from the body of the sea cucumber, right? Or even these, right? All the way up at the front here. So if we take a closer look, these spikes are actually false. That means that if you go ahead and touch our sea cucumber, which you might be able to if you ever visit us at the aquarium, if you take a closer look, those spikes are actually false. So that means if you touch it, it's going to be actually very, very squishy and slimy. So you will not feel those spikes at all. Exactly. Yeah, let me move out the way here. We have lots of other sea cucumbers, and you're able to really see the long shape of our sea cucumber, creating that oval shape that we talked about earlier. And then we're able to see even bigger spikes on this one, like our sea cucumber that we see here compared to the one that we saw before, right? And this cucumber, the color of the sea cucumber, is actually like dark color, kind of like a dark tan color, or maybe even black, right? But it definitely has these black spikes, right? And if you take a look at the bottom actually has these little tiny modified tube feet. So they move a lot like our sea stars do. And in the front, they also have a type of modified tube feet that is in their mouth. And that's how they kind of catch all of their food, kind of like the anemones do, with these kind of long projections. And they take it down in their mouth. So sea cucumbers actually very tiny creatures. For example, maybe like plankton. So they are very small and they're called filter feeders. So with their tiny spikes, they pick out all the tiny little plankton and they go ahead and eat it. Really cool, right? So now we learned a little bit about the sea cucumber. Let's see if we have a few more friends that we might be able to see. Ooh, I think this friend looks very different. Do you see the color of our new friend over here? So if we go ahead and take our pointer finger, this is actually a sea urchin. If we take our pointer finger and we go ahead and start right at the top here, and we're going to go ahead and create a nice big round circle around our sea urchin. So the sea urchin has a nice, beautiful circle shape. If we create that circle together, it's not a perfect circle. That is because it has lots of little spikes. And those spikes are what color? They are purple, right? So if we take a closer look, they look like little pom-poms with all of their purple spikes. So sea urchins actually eat a lot of maybe what you might be eating, right? So for example, they like to eat this green plant that's right here. Do you know what that is? You can call it out if you know what that is. Or maybe you've eaten it before. So if we take a closer look at the bottom here, this is actually a nice, lovely, beautiful blade of kelp. Or maybe you know it as seaweed. So if we look at the bottom here, it has a nice green color. And that is actually the urchin's favorite food. So maybe you have something in common with our sea urchin. If we take a look at our sea urchin and look at all of their spikes are actually in the between their spikes, they have modified 2 feet as well. And that's actually how they grab all of this yummy kelp and then they take it to their mouth. Their mouth is right at the bottom of their body, right here. You won't be able to see it in this picture, but you're able to see if we go ahead and flip an urchin over, you might be able to see its mouth at the bottom, right where that blade of kelp is. So this urchin might be getting some yummy food. Oh, thank you, Sophie. And we have a beautiful picture where you can actually see all of these modified 2 feet, all of these little tiny spikes. So these 2 feet is how they grab onto their food. And then they go ahead and once they have a yummy, nice piece of food, they go ahead and take it all the way down and they take it to this bottom area, right? And that is where they have their mouth. So they're eating lots of yummy, yummy kelp, just like we do. If we take a closer look, oh, these urchins might be getting fed this yummy kelp right now. So again, they take it all the way down to their mouth, and they go ahead and eat that yummy kelp. Sometimes they actually also like to disguise themselves. Like we might be able to see this urchin right here has a kind of funny rock costume right now, right? So they actually use those 2 feet to kind of put sediment and rocks over their head. And that's how they kind of use to hide as well. Or maybe if you were to touch a sea urchin, if you take one finger and you go ahead and put it in between the spikes, right? You might get a nice sea urchin hug. They're kind of holding on to you with those 2 feet and those spikes, right? But we also see all of these different colors in the top right corner over here. We might be able to even see a red sea urchin, right? But we also have some purple sea urchins here. Beautiful colors. So now that oh, I think we have a picture of their mouth. Oh, how cute! If we take a closer look at the mouth is going to be right at the bottom. So what we're seeing here is actually we're able to see the urchin kind of stuck on this glass panel. And then we're able to see through the glass and we're able to see get lovely pictures like this one right here. So their mouth is actually right in the middle here. Their mouth actually has a special name. It's called Aristotle's lantern, right? And it's devised of 5 little tiny pieces that crunch up little spikes, sorry. Those little pieces of kelp that we see here. But you're also able to see all of these little tiny 2 feet all the way around. It kind of looks very fuzzy. All right, beautiful. Thank you, Sophie, for that beautiful picture. So let's see if we can find one more or maybe a few more ocean animal friends that we might be able to find in our tide pool. Let's take a closer look. Oh, do you see what I see? Do you know what animal this is? It's one of my favorites here at the aquarium. I always like to visit this animal friend here at our aquarium. I think you got it. This is our octopus friend. If we take a closer look at our giant Pacific octopus, we might be able to see lots of different shapes. For example, we might be able to see, this is a good one right here, all of these kind of modeling, all of these little kind of circles that we see here, right? So right at the bottom of each of those arms, we're able to see all of these little kind of circles that we're seeing here. We also take a look at its entire body, this back part here, right? It's actually a beautiful, maybe stretched out oval that you might be able to create with your point. Oh, that's a very good pose. Thank you, friend. Right there, you're able to create that big oval, kind of like its head. So if we take a closer look, can you tell what color it is? What color do you think this octopus is? Hmm, you got it. It's like a bright orange color. But Sophie, I think not all octopus friends are orange, right? I think sometimes they could do something very, very cool with their bodies. I wonder what they can do. Oh, let's take a closer look. So we have a nice bright orange red octopus, but all of a sudden, what happened to our octopus friend? Let's see if we can watch it one more time. So again, we have a red octopus, but then all of a sudden we're gonna start seeing it blend in to a lot of these corals around it. All of these beautiful corals all the way around. Ooh. So what we just saw is our octopus friend using camouflage. If you don't know what camouflage just means that they're able to blend in with their habitats. In this case, we have lots of beautiful corals like the ones that we have all around, right? If we look at all of those different corals, all of the corals don't seem smooth. So if you were to go touch the corals, they look very bumpy and they'll probably feel very bumpy, right? If we were to take an even closer look, we kind of notice that the octopus doesn't look that smooth. Kind of like this right here looks very, very smooth, maybe even soft, squishy skin. But then all of a sudden, when it's trying to blend in and camouflage with all those corals, it kind of looks a little bit spiky and stretched out, just like that. It's kind of like if it was able to pinch its own skin and look very spiky and intimidating, right? So they were not only able to change the color of their bodies, they're also able to change a little bit of the texture and look a little bit more spiky, right? Remember how we talked about those sea stars and how why they're bumpy? Octopus are doing the same way. So they use those false spikes to appear a little bit more intimidating or to even be able to blend in with all of these spiky corals all around, right? And if we take a closer look, it's no longer orange. Do we see an orange octopus? Probably not, right? Here it is again, that nice bright orange red octopus. But then it's going to go ahead and change color. Now we're starting to see some white spots or even brown spots all the way at the end of those spikes. And we're starting to notice all of those different colors start forming. Can we do that? Probably not, right? But our octopus friends are very fancy in their camouflage because they're able to change the color and texture of their skin. That is because they have little tiny skin cells that are called chromatophores all over their body. And they're able to detect any sort of color or even texture and appear the same way. And that makes them a little bit harder to find, which is a good thing, especially if they're trying to hide from any predators. If we look at the shape of the octopus, you might be noticing it has lots of little projections coming out, right? Let's see if we could go back to our original video and see all of those beautiful arms, and maybe we'll be able to count them together, right? If we take a look at all of those arms all around the octopus, you might be able to notice that they have not one arm, but they actually have 8 arms. Imagine if we had that many arms. Oh, this is a really great picture. If we take a look at their arms, let's go ahead and count them together. You have one, they have two, they have three, right? And then on the other side, they have four, one right here hanging out in the back. They have five, six, seven, oh, I skipped one, seven, and eight. So with all of these arms, it kind of looks like they are stretching out really, really big. And they're able to use all of these arms to stick onto things with the bottom circles that we talked about earlier. Those are called their suction cups. So with all of those suction cups, they're able to hold on to different surfaces, exactly like this octopus friend that we're seeing here, right? We're seeing all of those arms stick to glass, and they're going to go ahead and stick and move, and then they're going to stick and move. So they use that to go ahead and move across that glass that we're seeing here. So all of those suction cups are very sticky and allows them to hold on to different surfaces. Sometimes they don't only use them for movement, sometimes they use them to grab their food. So if we look at all of these little tiny suction cups, right, they're going to go ahead and use their arms to stretch out. Once they find a good, maybe clam that they need to open, they're going to go ahead and pry that clam open and they're going to go ahead and take it to their mouth. Do you know where an octopus's mouth is? I'll give you a few seconds. Maybe you can point it out. And we get a very good picture of it right now. Could you guess? If you guess that it is right in the middle of their body, once it's all stretched out right there, right? It is right in the middle of their body, right down. Oh, let's see if we could get a good one. Right there, right in that middle section. So all between all of those little tiny arms in the middle, if we flip on over the octopus over, you might be able to see that middle area. That is what we call their beak. You'll be able to find their beak there. And you might be thinking, why is it called a beak if it's not a bird? That is because their beak looks a lot like the beak of an actual bird. So its system's able to open and close. And sometimes they even have little tiny projections, like little spikes coming out of their beaks, right, to be able to actually take bites of their food. But their teeth do not look like ours. But they go ahead and take their food and they fill up their mouth from their beaks. Beautiful. So, an octopus friends are very different than us, right? And if we look at all of those arms, you might be thinking it kind of looks like if they have brains of their own, right? Like we're able to control our arms, right? Able to control. But imagine if we had that many arms, we would might be able to need some help. So, for our octopus friends, they actually have 8 brains. You might be thinking why they have 8 brains. Well, they have 8 arms. So they have one able to control each of their arms, which kind of makes it look like they have minds of their own. But then they have one extra brain. So we add 8 plus 1, that'll make it 9 brains, right? So that extra brain that they have is actually their main central brain to control the rest of their bodies and their functions. So that includes all of those brains. All right, friends. So, now that we took a look at all of these wonderful animals that we looked at today, remember we took a look at what we find in our tide pool habitat. Let's see if we could go back to our tide pool so we could remember. Beautiful. So, these are all wonderful animals that we might be able to find in our tide pool habitat that looks a lot like this. In our tide pool, we found some anemones like the ones we see here. We discovered that anemones are a nice circle shape and they come in various colors. For example, sometimes they are green, sometimes they are pink, right? Sometimes they are nice bright yellow, like the ones we all see all down here, right? They have those tentacles for them to catch their food that are very sticky. Then we learned a little bit about our sea star friends, kind of like the bat star that we have all the way down here. So all of our sea stars have those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 arms, right? And they create that star pattern or that star shape. And we also learned that they come in lots of different colors too and textures. Some of them are a little bit bumpier than others. So if we look, we have some purple, we have some pink, we have some orange, and sometimes we even have some blue sea stars. So we also learned a little bit about our urchin friends. Remember how we talked about how sometimes they like to wear hats or little costumes with their 2 feet? Beautiful. So we have our sea urchin here. So that is a nice circle shape and it has all of these spikes and 2 feet that it uses to eat. Do you remember? It uses it to eat kelp, right? So it likes chomping or munching on that kelp. And they also come in maybe purples, like this purple sea urchin that we see here. Sometimes they even come in red, like the red sea urchin that we found earlier. And then lastly, we can't forget our sea cucumber, right? So that sea cucumber, does anyone remember what shape our sea cucumber was? Ooh, right. It's a long stretched out circle, which we call an oval. So it's a nice stretched out circle. And they also come in different colors. Some of the ones that we saw are red, but with these white spikes. Some of them were a little bit darker in color, like that sort of tan one that we saw with those black spikes, right? But remember, were these spikes real? Not entirely, right? We call them false spikes. And then we saw our beautiful octopus with all of those 8 arms. And we also learned that they can change colors, so they could take it a step further. All right, my friends. It was wonderful exploring our tide pool habitat with you today. I think we found lots of different shapes and lots of different colors today. All right, my friends, I had a beautiful time exploring today with you. And don't forget, you might be able to find any other shapes or even colors at your home. See if you can find any of the colors we explored today or the shapes we explored today. All right, my friends, that is all the time we have today. It was very lovely to spend this time with you. And again, if you are watching this at any point, you can email us with any questions that you might have. Bye, everyone.